Joining me now, as promised, Democratic Congresswoman-elect Jennifer Wexton, who flipped Virginia's 10th congressional district. Congresswoman-elect, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Look, this seems esoteric, but it's important because Nancy Pelosi, like her or don't like her, and many like her and many don't like her, is institutional. She is representative of the Democratic Party in Congress. She is, for all intents and purposes, the existing face of the Democratic Party in Congress. Arguably, that face has changed some. Where do you stand on the issue of Nancy Pelosi as the next Speaker of the House?
I will be supporting Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. I think that she has what it takes, and I know that we've got a lot of work to do, and she's ready to hit the ground running on day one.
It looks to me, Politico has an article that suggests that at least 3 additional lawmakers or members-elect who have confirmed to Politico that they intend to oppose Pelosi on the floor. Conor Lamb of Pennsylvania, Abigail Spanberger of Virginia, Jason Crow of Colorado. That could put the total number of opponents at 19, which means this may actually be a fight. You may be involved in a campaign of some sort.
Well, I would not count Leader Pelosi out. You know, she's very capable of voting to 50% plus one, and I'm sure that she has been making the rounds, talking to members about what they're looking for and what their requests would be.
You know, an exit poll from NBC News on election night indicated that Nancy Pelosi has an unfavorable rating of 56% versus a favorable of 31%. To what do you attribute that? Somebody asked me the other day, why don't people like Nancy Pelosi? How would you respond to that? What's the thing that would cause people who are Democrats? Let's forget Republicans who don't like people of the other party. But let's talk about Democrats alone. Why do people not like Nancy Pelosi, do you think?
Well, there have been about a decade's worth of political advertising attacking her relentlessly over and over, so that certainly has an impact, I would imagine.
What do you think causes people to like her? Because if there are 19 against her, that may still put her close enough to having enough people to put her over the top. What's the thing that you think Nancy Pelosi represents that Democrats should be thinking about?
She's incredibly effective. You know, she is able to shepherd through big pieces of legislation, and that's what we're hoping to do over the next 2 years. You know, we've got, as I said, a lot of work to do. We didn't run on promises to oppose and obstruct. We all ran on promises to work together and make things happen to benefit our constituents in this country. You know, we need to work on health care. We need to do work on gun violence prevention. We need to work on money in politics and restoring faith in good government. There's so much for us to do, but we need a leader who's going to be able to shepherd this legislation through Congress.
And our exit polls show that health care is the most important issue to voters who voted in this past election. That's where they're going to want your attention focused. Congresswoman-elect Jennifer Wexton, congratulations on your election, and thanks for joining us on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.